On the One show tonight, David Blunkett visits the Sheffield house where he grew up and find out about some of the UK's most ridiculous laws. Adrian Charles and Christine Bleakley on the One show tonight from 7. And good luck to Gaynor in West Yorkshire, who's raising money for children in need by holding a pyjama day at her local nursery on Friday.
Oh, wow!
Do you remember the old bandstand in the park?
Think about it twice a day.
How was she?
Hasn't changed a bit.
Panic attack.
I've got something to tell you.
Snap.
The second of 6 stories from the street, Thursday at 9 on BBC1.
There are 500,000 like Craig in Britain said to have the behavioural disorder ADHD. For many, drugs are the only help on offer, but now Panorama reveals new research showing that long-term the drugs don't work. That's tonight at 8:30.
This is BBC1 in the northeastern Cumbria. And now the news with Dermot Murnaghan, Sean Williams and Carol Malia.
At 6 o'clock, bird flu is back. It's found on a turkey farm in Suffolk.
The birds have the H5 strain of avian flu. A 3-mile protection zone is now in force.
5,000 birds will be slaughtered at the farm near Diss. The source of the outbreak isn't clear.
Also on tonight's programme, schoolgirl Leslie Mulseed was killed more than 30 years ago. Tonight, the man who thought he had got away with murder is finally behind bars.
It has been a long and harrowing ordeal, and our gratitude to the friends, family and strangers throughout the world who have given us their support is immense.
Controversial drugs used to treat tens of thousands of hyperactive children may have no long-term benefit.
And London burning. More than 70 firefighters tackle a blaze on the Olympic site.
In Look North at 6:30, a hospital's negligence did this to their son. Now they're to receive £3.6 million. And an MP calls for more scrutiny of the use of mobility scooters.
Good evening and welcome to the 6 o'clock news. Tonight, around 5,000 turkeys, geese and ducks, which were being reared for Christmas, are being culled after bird flu was found on a farm in Suffolk.
Well, scientists say they don't know if the poultry had the deadly H5N1 strain of the virus, but they have set up a protection zone around the farm. It's near Diss. We're going to be hearing from Fergus Walsh shortly. In fact, here he is now.
This is the second time this year that the poultry industry heartland in East Anglia has been struck by a serious outbreak of bird flu. In February, 160,000 turkeys had to be culled at a Bernard Matthews plant in Suffolk because of H5N1. This time, 5,000 birds are due to be culled after an outbreak on a farm near Diss. Preliminary tests show some turkeys had the H5 strain. We'll know later whether it was the highly pathogenic H5N1 form of the disease, which is deadly to poultry.
All the birds on the premises, because it's H5, will be slaughtered. It's got turkeys, there are also ducks and geese on the premises, and they will be humanely destroyed.
A 3-kilometre protection zone has been set up around the farm. Birds inside will have to be tested and kept indoors. Inside a wider 10-kilometre surveillance zone, there'll be movement restrictions.
This is an incredibly worrying time for farmers. All the free-range birds that are outside, the free-range turkeys ready for the Christmas rush, would be exposed to migratory birds or any infection that is out there at this moment in time. The whole poultry industry is on tenterhooks, worried and waiting for news over the next 24 hours.
The big question now is, where did the virus come from? There have been several outbreaks in the rest of Europe. The source could have been a wild bird or accidental human contamination by workers unwittingly bringing the virus into the UK. There is no threat to human health. H5N1 is an animal disease. The only way humans can catch it is through direct contact with contaminated birds. Fergus Walsh, BBC News.
Let's talk to Kim Riley, who's at the scene now. And Kim, a real blow to the area.
Yeah, I mean, this is a huge, East Anglia is a huge producer of turkeys and chicken, basically the poultry industry, very, very big here. Of course, we had the outbreak at the Bernard Matthews plant earlier in the year, and that was very bad news. We've had the blue tongue disease in the middle of it all, and now a recurrence of bird flu. In the build-up to Christmas, these latest birds were all being prepared for the Christmas table. It couldn't really have come at a worse time for the industry here.
OK, Kim Riley, thank you.
I could tell...
More from Kim, of course, on BBC News 24 on that breaking news story. Now, Ronald Castry stabbed 11-year-old Leslie Molseed to death more than 30 years ago, and all that time he'd thought he'd got away with it. He'd even stayed silent as an innocent man was sent down for her murder. But tonight, Castry is finally behind bars. Sentencing him to life, the judge said the family had had a long wait for justice. Let's join Mark Simpson now. He's in Bradford tonight. Mark.
Yes, for more than 3 decades, Ronald Castry believed he had literally got away with murder. But he hadn't, and today here at Bradford Crown Court, that 32-year mystery surrounding the killing of Leslie Molseed was finally solved once and for all. It was one of the most gruesome murders of the 1970s. An 11-year-old schoolgirl was abducted and killed while going out to buy her mum a loaf of bread. Leslie Molseed never made it to the shops. She disappeared and was never seen alive again. 32 years later, we now know who killed Leslie: Ronald Castry, who used to live a few streets away. His DNA was found to be a direct match to evidence found at the murder scene. And last year, he was finally questioned by police about Leslie Molseed's death in 1975.
No knowledge as to how you come to, say, a sample of my DNA is found at that place, especially after 30 years.
But he was lying. Back in 1975, Castry was a married man working as a part-time taxi driver, and it was him who killed Leslie. This is where she died, more than 10 miles from her family home in Rochdale. It is an isolated part of the Pennines where a little girl's screams couldn't have been heard. Ronald Castry brought Leslie Molseed here 32 years ago. He sexually assaulted her and then he stabbed her 12 times. Today, Castry's brutal past finally caught up with him as he was found guilty of murder. There to see him convicted was Leslie's family, including her elderly mother, April.
We are relieved that after so long, our quest for justice for Leslie is now over. It has been a long and harrowing ordeal.
30 years ago, police wrongly believed this man was the killer, Stefan Kishko. He served 16 years in prison before being cleared. He died shortly after being released from prison. Leslie Molseed's father believes the real killer deserves the death penalty.
I'd like to see him strung up, to be honest. You know, that would be the ultimate justice.
Tonight, the family of Leslie Molseed have finally got answers to questions which have haunted them for 3 decades, but it doesn't make their pain any easier. Well, the killer, Ronald Castry, was today given a life sentence. The judge said he should serve a minimum of 30 years in jail. He's 54 at the moment. He could conceivably spend the rest of his life behind bars. Shan.
Mark, thank you.
America is and always will be our most important ally. That's likely to be the main theme tonight of a major speech by Gordon Brown on foreign policy. In his annual Mansion House address, he'll try to quash speculation that he's less enthusiastic about the relationship than Tony Blair was. Here's our diplomatic correspondent, James Robbins.
In a world of threats as well as opportunities, Gordon Brown stresses the connections. British troops fighting in Afghanistan, relations with America, Iran's disputed nuclear plans, the need for the world to act together on climate change. Tonight, the Prime Minister will very deliberately place links with the United States centre stage. The precise political chemistry between the two leaders is endlessly scrutinised. Gordon Brown wants to bat away any suggestion of a gap widening. So expect the Prime Minister tonight to expand on this from yesterday.
We as a country are part of an international endeavour. America is our most important ally. It will always be, because of the values we share with America, absolutely central to how we conduct our foreign policy.
But what's the view from America itself? The BBC's Jonathan Beale is there.
Here in Washington at the White House, there's been a distinct autumn chill in relations with Britain. The UK is still seen as an important ally in America's war on terror, with British troops in both Iraq and Afghanistan. But the question they're asking here is, can relations with Gordon Brown ever be as close as they were with Tony Blair? In America, Gordon Brown is still a relatively unknown quantity, and among the wider public, a somewhat unfamiliar face. Do you know who this man is?
Nope, can't say that I do.
I tell you it's Gordon Brown. Do you know who that is?
Gordon Brown, not ringing a bell either.
Do you know who this is?
It's Golden Blair, not Golden, he's the new Prime Minister.
Gordon Brown.
Gordon Brown,
And
yes.
what kind of ally of America is he, do you think?
He's an ally.
How would you describe him as an ally of America?
Well, not as the ally as the guy he replaced.
The reality, President Bush has been looking to other European leaders like France's Nicolas Sarkozy and Germany's Angela Merkel to fill the void left by Tony Blair. It's no longer just Britain that enjoys a special relationship.
Jonathan Beale in Washington. So how does Gordon Brown intend facing up to what's widely judged to be the single greatest threat, Iran and its disputed nuclear intentions? Well, tonight he's expected to urge international unity behind extra sanctions if they're needed, but he'll also sketch out a big idea, a possible way out of confrontation. Iran is busy enriching uranium, a route to nuclear electricity, but also possibly to making the bomb. Tonight, Gordon Brown is expected to propose an international uranium bank. The outside world would offer nuclear fuel for power generation to countries including Iran. No need for them to keep the technology, which could also be used to make nuclear weapons. So how might Iran react? John Lyne is there.
Here in the beautiful city of Isfahan, there'll be deep scepticism over what Gordon Brown has to say on Iran. Most people here share the government line that it's all just part of a campaign of psychological warfare that's not really going anywhere, that's no real threat to this country. This city is the site of one of those controversial nuclear plants, and President Ahmadinejad's nuclear policy does have strong support, even though the government is unpopular in a lot of other areas.
Back in London, the final preparations for tonight's city banquet are being made. Between the courses, Gordon Brown will define his foreign policy as hard-headed internationalism, facing threats with as many allies as possible, but not ducking tough choices. James Robbins, BBC News.
Men who commit rape think they can get away with it. That was the warning today from the Conservative leader David Cameron. He's promised tougher sentences for offenders and says that school pupils should be taught that no means no in sex education classes. Mark Easton joins us in the studio with all the details. Mark.
Yeah, thank you, Sian. Getting reliable statistics on rape is not easy, so the Home Office commissions large surveys asking thousands of people about their experiences. The results are consistent and shocking. The most recent figures suggest 85,000 adult women were victims of rape in the previous 12 months. That's 230 people raped every day. And yet the number of men convicted of rape is less than 800 a year. The chance of a victim seeing her attacker jailed is less than 100 to 1.
How can any civilized country that sees the sanctity of consent to sex as a vital right for every woman accept these facts? And what about when the perpetrator is actually convicted? The average custodial sentence handed to rapists in England and Wales has fallen over the last 3 years, for which there's published data, to around 80 months.
Well, tougher sentences may make a difference, but that's not why so few rapes end up with a conviction. To understand that, it's worth looking at who the rapists are. Only 17% of rapists are strangers to their victim, of which 4% are cases of date rape. 29% are committed by someone known to the victim, but most, 54%, are committed by a husband, a partner, or an ex-partner. What's more, even though their experience is technically rape in law, 50% of those rape victims don't describe it that way. For years, government have looked to tackle rape and sexual crimes with campaigns like this one. But some lawyers warn that focusing on conviction rates is not the solution.
judges and lawyers are not primarily going to be concerned with an increased conviction rate. They're going to be concerned about substantive justice being done. That's a proper protection which shouldn't be watered down for defendants in this sort of criminal proceeding, and of course that victims are able to be properly heard and dealt with and helped.
David Cameron today also called for sex education to do more to combat rape and better support for victims. Rape is a particularly dreadful crime. 1/4 of women suffer depression or mental illness as a result, and 1 in 20 attempt suicide. Charles.
Mark, thank you. 6 people have been killed and more than 80 injured at a rally in Gaza after clashes broke out between the rival Palestinian factions Hamas and Fatah. Thousands of Fatah supporters had joined a memorial service to mark the 3rd anniversary of the death of Palestinian leader Yasser Arafat. It's the largest public gathering since Hamas seized control in June.
Rescue teams are searching for 5 missing sailors after several ships were hit by a powerful storm in the Kerch Strait between Russia and Ukraine. The bodies of 3 men have been found and 35 have been rescued.
A fire at the site being developed for the London 2012 Olympics sent a huge plume of smoke across the capital this afternoon. 75 firefighters tackled the blaze. Luckily, there were no injuries. John Brain has the story.
In a city on alert for a terrorist attack, this was a sight to cause alarm. The plume of smoke could be seen for 20 miles, momentarily darkening part of the capital. Its source, a blazing warehouse on the western edge of the Olympic Park. The fire began just after midday. Within minutes, much of the building had collapsed.
Do you think that's safe being there?
These pictures, filmed by workers from an office nearby, show the intensity of the fire as it ripped through the empty building. Soon afterwards, the entire area was evacuated.
I've never seen anything like it. It was just the most immensest billows of smoke and fire, and then we actually saw the building collapse as well.
As I turned the corner, I turned round and there was just like smoke in the sky, filling the sky. It was absolutely huge. It's like humongous.
With the emergency now over and fire crews damping down, preparations are being made for an investigation into the cause of the fire, though early indications are that this was an accident and not arson. It's been revealed that asbestos has been found at the site, but health officials have moved quickly to reassure the public.
We do not think that much asbestos would have left the fire site at all, but that which has left, we want to try and identify quickly and to clean it up properly.
The building had been due for demolition today. The Olympic Delivery Authority says the fire won't cause any significant delay to the development of the Olympic Park. John Brain, BBC News, East London.
Now, look at the time. It's 16 minutes past 6.
Our top story tonight, 5,000 birds are being slaughtered after bird flu was found on a farm in Suffolk.
And coming up in the programme, it's R&B EU style, the foreign ministers who've made a new single.
And here at 6:30, straight after the national news, no waiting room or travelling, how doctors are saving patients a lot of effort thanks to a computer link. And praise for fans after the Weird Tyne derby passed peacefully.
Now, it's a condition that affects hundreds of thousands of families. Attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, or ADHD, makes it difficult for children to concentrate, and they're more likely to fail at school.
Last year alone, 55,000 British youngsters with ADHD were given drugs to try to control the condition. But now a leading scientist in America says there's no evidence the medicines provide a long-term solution. Panorama's Shelley Joffrey has this report.
Do it then. Do you think I care anymore, eh? No. Do you think I give it? Go. What you want?
This is Craig. He's 14 and has ADHD. He's been on medication for the condition for nearly a decade, yet his behaviour still causes him and his family huge problems.
We all suffer, the whole family suffer for it. We can't plan anything.
Treating ADHD with medication rather than therapy was recommended after an American research project which compared the two. The NTA study followed 600 children and reported after a year. But as the study continued over a number of years, the benefits of medication disappeared.
There's no indication that medication is better than nothing in the long run. In the short run, it will help the child behave better. In the long run, it won't. And that information should be made very clear to parents.
We've got a generation of children who've been on these kind of pills now for some time. What is the evidence that it's helped them?
There's no evidence that it's helped them.
As simple as that.
It's as simple as that.
In America, Professor Pelham runs classes for children and their parents, teaching them all better skills for dealing with the behavioural problems of ADHD. And a psychiatrist involved in drawing up new guidelines for the treatment of ADHD in England and Wales hopes in future children like Craig will be offered more than just drugs.
A comprehensive approach to treatment that will advise about the use of parent training programs, the use of behavioural interventions of other kinds, that will advise about what teachers might be able to do within the classroom when they're trying to deal with kids that have difficult problems of this kind. I think the important thing is that we have a comprehensive approach which doesn't focus just on one type of treatment.
The future is not so bright for Craig. He's assaulted his teachers and is no longer in school. He's still on medication. Shelley Joffrey, BBC News.
And you can see more on that research into ADHD on Panorama tonight on BBC1 at 8:30.
When it comes to green ways to travel, there can't be many better solutions. A school in Cambridgeshire has started using chip fat to make biodiesel for the students' school bus. It's thought that do-it-yourself fuel has a very big future, as Richard Scott now explains.
Now you can go from this to this. Changes in the summer mean you can make 2,500 litres of biodiesel tax-free. And one school in Cambridgeshire is taking advantage of the new rules. It's using waste oil from its kitchen and a local pub to run its minibus.
First we heat the waste cooking oil and then mix it with the caustic potash and methanol.
Then we let it settle in here and we drain off the glycerine.
Biodiesel is then washed and neutralised.
And after 24 hours we can then put the biodiesel in our school van.
Well, we've decided to put the project in to make science alive so that it becomes real for the students and allows them to still use the same minibus that they would have used before to get to their matches. It's just running in an economical way.
The home brewing kits cost from around £1,000, and if you can get your oil for your biodiesel for free, then a litre of biodiesel is likely to cost you around 12 pence. If you have to buy in your oil though, then the cost of a litre of biodiesel rises to about 40 pence. Compare that with the price at the pumps, where a litre of diesel is now more than £1. Car manufacturers have warned that using the biodiesel is at your own risk and that it could invalidate your warranty. But those behind the kits aren't worried.
The worst thing that could happen is it could block your filter from the residue left by fossil fuel. I actually have a letter off the manufacturer of my vehicle that states I can use 100% biodiesel.
Pupils in maths and science classes will be analysing the effects of using the biodiesel, while school trips and sports teams get to enjoy the results. Richard Scott, BBC News, Cambridgeshire.
Millions of people who post personal details on social networking sites could be leaving themselves open to identity fraud. The Get Safe Online campaign is also warning that too many home wireless networks are being left unsecured, making them vulnerable to fraudsters who could hack in and steal information.
Italian football could be suspended after some of the worst crowd violence there in recent years. Rioting and vandalism was sparked after police accidentally shot dead a 26-year-old Lazio fan. Well, now the Italian Football Federation is trying to work out how to stop the violence. From Rome, Clive Myrie reports.
Violence once again surrounds Italian football. This, the aftermath of weekend rioting that's left the nation reeling and desperate for a solution to a decades-old problem. The trouble started when Gabriele Sandri, a Lazio fan, was accidentally shot by a policeman at a motorway service station on Sunday. The officer was dealing with a disturbance between Lazio and Juventus fans, though Mr. Sandri wasn't involved. Word quickly spread of the shooting, and rioting broke out at games across Italy, with the trouble lasting well into the evening. At this Lazio Sports Talk radio station, there was only one topic of conversation today. Every caller angry about the violent few who've again shamed the beautiful game.
We're in a form of anarchy, in my opinion. We're not tough enough on the hooligans. Everyone does what they want.
This is all so depressingly familiar. Last season, a policeman was killed in rioting following a game between Palermo and Catania. Tough anti-hooligan laws resulted in some games being played in empty stadia. Today, however, these flowers left in tribute to a dead soccer fan, a testament to a land still riven with problems on the terraces. The policeman accused of Gabriel Sandri's death now faces manslaughter charges. Italy's sports minister now wants all matches postponed for several weeks while the authorities work out how best to deal with crowd violence. Britain turned its hooligan problem around several years ago. Now the Italians are wondering, short of banning fans from games forever, what they can do. Clive Myrie, BBC News, Rome.
Commonwealth foreign ministers are discussing possible sanctions against Pakistan following the imposition of emergency rule there by General Musharraf. It comes as the opposition leader Benazir Bhutto has been told she won't be allowed to hold a protest march tomorrow from Lahore to Islamabad. She's announced she won't be holding any further power-sharing talks with General Musharraf.
A man has tried to attack the German Chancellor Angela Merkel as she welcomed the French President Nicolas Sarkozy to Berlin. The man moved towards the leaders during a visit to a school but was stopped by security guards.
And staying with EU leaders, they're the world's least likely R&B performers. Bernhard Kouchner and Frank-Walter Steinmeier are the foreign ministers of France and Germany, and they've just recorded a new track.
But what do you think their theme is? Could it be good old-fashioned romance or maybe a commentary on modern culture? Nope, it's European integration. Here's Steve Rosenberg.
Deutschland, Deutschland.
Could this be the Christmas #1? Probably not. Even if it doesn't go top of the pops, the singing foreign ministers of Germany and France hope that their latest single, Deutschland, will promote European harmony.
Both government, French and the German and the French, were talking about integration. And what the best example is here. We'll produce integration in music.
The Berlin music scene has seen nothing like this before. 2 foreign ministers singing the praises of integration. But don't run out to the shops to buy a copy. This international hit is only available online.
It's not the first time politicians have played at being musicians. The late Boris Yeltsin tried his hand at conducting once, and only once. Bill Clinton has starred with a saxophone, Condoleezza Rice on the piano. But what do music lovers make of this song?
Great vocals there.
Yeah, it's quite funky. It's groovy.
Which shows that instead of making long, boring speeches, politicians are better off singing if they want to show they're in tune with the people. Steve Rosenberg, BBC News, Berlin.
The phrase, don't give up the day job, comes to mind.
It's not very catchy, is it? Never mind. Let's get a look at the weather. Susan Powell's joining us.
And perhaps on cue after that little number, actually, there's rain in the forecast. We won't blame it on them, though, but it could actually bring us some good news overnight tonight as well. Cloud and rain is already pushing into Scotland and Northern Ireland as we speak. It'll sweep across all parts of the UK before the night is through, and it will also bring with it some milder air. Temperatures already above freezing across Scotland and Northern Ireland. Further south, though, across South Wales and southern England, we've already got a frost developing in parts of Worcestershire and Oxfordshire, and in some sheltered rural areas we could be looking at -2 on the thermometer through the course of this evening. Watch, though, the cloud and rain head south across the UK through this evening and tonight. Notice the blue lift up out of the map. It will actually be milder to end the night. Our finishing temperatures for the night ranging from somewhere between 4 to 8 degrees Celsius. So that means a frost-free start to tomorrow, quite a different start to the one we had today, but a different looking start as well. A lot more cloud left across the UK. It will take a time for sunny